Hello and welcome to GMO Free News. This is Rachel Linden, your host. We are joined today by our producer, Jack Olmstead. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
And from a special guest coming to us from Detroit, Michigan, talking to us about the Flint Water Crisis, we have Pastor Bullock. Pastor Bullock, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Jack. It's so good to be on the show.
We've got about 30 minutes to kind of give you an update about what's going on. Tomorrow's a big day. Tomorrow's a big day for Flint, for Lansing, and most definitely for the governor in Detroit. Can you tell us a little bit, Pastor Bullock, about what's going on tomorrow and what is brewing with the governor's office?
Well, on tomorrow, citizens, clergy, concerned folks from Flint, from Benton Harbor, from Detroit will travel to Lansing. We'll meet at Central Methodist Episcopal Church, 215 North Capitol Ave, and we're going to Lansing to stand up for Flint and to continue to demand justice in the case where the city of Flint has had its entire water supply poisoned with lead. Now, I want to remind people, Thursday, tomorrow is January 14th, Friday is January 15th, which is the official birthday, not the national holiday, but the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. As a graduate of Morehouse College, as a Baptist pastor myself, I am in the King tradition. We thought that we would honor Dr. King by doing what I believe Dr. King would be doing if he were alive today. He would be going to Lansing, calling for justice for Flint. We're meeting at the church at 11 a.m., Central Methodist Episcopal Church, 215 North Capitol Ave, Lansing, Michigan. Once we get there, we're going to inform the crowd, we're going to rally, and then we are going to meet with legislators. We're going to go by the Attorney General's office, and then we got a special action plan for Governor Rick Snyder, ultimately calling for him to resign, but before that, calling on the state of Michigan to do right by the citizens of Flint.
Excellent. So now this isn't a new crisis. This has just been drug out. This is something 2 years in running, am I right?
That's right. The Flint Water Crisis is at least 2 years old, and it's tied to Governor Rick Snyder's emergency manager plan, which is his urban policy plan. Flint was not being run by its mayor. It was not being run by a city council. It was being run by one person who had all the power to make all the decisions. Now, that sounds strange when I say it because people say that in America we have a democracy. But the truth is that in the state of Michigan, there is no democracy. And so the emergency manager ran the city of Flint and decided to try to save $5 million by switching Flint from the Detroit Water and Sewage Department. The water was fine to the Flint River that had not been used since 1950. They knew the water was so corrosive that it corroded automotive parts in the GM plant. GM said, we're not going to use the Flint River water. We're going to stay with Detroit. Now, when the city of Flint tried to object, the governor, Rick Snyder, and the emergency manager told the city of Flint they could not switch back to the city of Detroit. They had to use the Flint River water. So this has been going on for at least 2 years, and Governor Rick Snyder knew the water was bad. He knew the water was going to corrode the pipes in the ground. He knew that there were lead connectors in that infrastructural system to deliver water to people's homes, and he knew what was going to happen. But we also know sometimes it's hard to detect lead poisoning. Lead is absorbed in the bones, it's absorbed in the body, and also we're talking about low to middle income Caucasian and African American folks, mostly Democrats, who didn't vote for him. We're talking about what Rick Snyder and the Republicans in Michigan believe is an expendable population. And so we've been fighting to get the national spotlight on this. And let me say, I'm so happy we have a national spotlight now, because we called many media outlets and they told us this is a small regional story. It's not national news. And I believe many people did not believe that a state government would intentionally or incompetently poison an entire city with lead. And so we're excited about the word getting out. But now we need to call for Rick Snyder to resign, those families need to have medical care for life.
I know Michael Moore, a resident of Flint, Michigan, or was at one point, is got a petition out for the governor's resignation, and he's got he's gone online, very vocal about it. I was tweeting about having the governor shot in a firing squad. I hope there's a little bit of humor behind that. So this is serious business. I mean,
no, this is serious business, definitely.
Serious business. This is, and the fact that he knew and tried to, in your words, I'm going to say, ignore the problem. Am I right?
That's right.
Ignore the problem, and was there cover-up? Was there collusion? What are we talking about? What was it? It clearly wasn't addressed. So we've got negligence. But is there more at play here? Is there money? Is there power? Is there political votes? What are we dealing with? Because is it more than just water here?
I think it's more than just water here. In Chicago, we found that a videotape was hidden from the community where a young man was shot 16 times. And so in the wake of Laquan McDonald, people don't have faith in the mayor of Chicago because they're trying to figure out why their government would try to cover up an incident of police brutality. In Flint, Michigan, we have people breaking into the municipal building, taking documents about the water crisis. We have a governor who sets up an investigative team that he appoints that doesn't have subpoena power, that has no real authority, and so he has his own team investigating the person who put the team together, namely Governor Rick Snyder. Also, there was a pipeline. There is a pipeline that is supposed to be built, a new pipeline. Flint had been getting its water from Detroit, but Governor Rick Snyder and his allies have invested in a new pipeline from Port Huron to Flint. And so we believe the switch was not about saving money. It was ultimately about Governor Rick Snyder and others making money off of the citizens of Flint. Because remember, Detroit just came out of bankruptcy. Flint was one of Detroit's biggest water customers. And so if the governor wanted to help Detroit, why would he authorize Flint to come off of Detroit's water system? One. Two, and if he did that, why would he make that decision when he knew the Flint River water was bad? And three, if there's a new pipeline being built from Port Huron to Flint, and we know the residents in the city of Flint are making money off of that pipeline, they pay some of the highest water bills in the country, we know that this really is about political profiteering. This is about intentional negligence, and I fundamentally believe it is criminal. We need Governor Rick Snyder to step down. We need him to be investigated criminally, not administratively, criminally, and we also need the state legislature to ante up on that $1.5 billion. And if the state of Michigan doesn't have it, the federal government needs to step in and have it. And so while people are talking about donating water and water filters, this is much bigger than bottled water and water filters.
So we know what part of the answer is here. We need the Flint River, the Flint water, not the Flint River necessarily, although that does need a cleanup. You need good water. You need wholesome water. When are the people of Flint going to have good water? When can they trust the water coming out of their pipes? When can they wash their babies in the water coming out of the pipes? When can they drink it, feed it to their kids? When can they trust that it's going to be safe? What has to happen for that to happen?
Well, in order for that to happen, and this is why this is such a big issue, the infrastructure in the ground, namely the pipes that the water runs through before it gets to your house, those pipes have been damaged beyond repair by the corrosive Flint River water running through them. Remember how the lead got in the water. The lead was in the connectors between the pipes in the ground. The corrosive water runs through those pipes and rips the lead off of the connectors. And then the lead is leached in the water. Those connectors now have been damaged beyond repair. That lead is in the system. The water won't be safe until there are new pipes, until there's a new system. And that means somebody's going to have to pay for that. Now, does Governor Rick Snyder want to pay for that? No, he does not want to pay for that. Does the state legislature want to pay for that? No, they don't want to pay for that. And so that's why it's going to be very, very important for us to demand that that $1.5 billion appropriation be made. And in the meantime, military grade whole house filters for homes in Flint until the pipes in the ground in Flint are repaired. So this is not a deliver bottled water, get a house filter, everything's going to be all right situation.
No, I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm glad you pointed that out because lead, number one, is extremely serious. It's a life-threatening issue, and it can lead to exposure as a child can lead to lifelong health issues of the worst, one of the worst possible kind, and that it is not an easy thing to filter it out. And you're right, not the average Brita water filter is going to be able to handle the situation. This is military grade, industrial grade filters that are going to have to be used in a residential setting. And you're right to say, too, that this scandal is not a quick fix. It's not filters. You have an infrastructure issue that is not specific to Flint. That's an infrastructure issue all across our country with aged pipes and pipes that contain lead. The uniqueness of it is that the Flint River is a moving body of water with corrosive water that's been dumped into it and still a dumping ground for industrial manufacturing and a whole host of other things, including the sewage coming from not just Flint, Michigan, but other cities as well. So you've got sewage, you've got chemicals coming in and out of the water, including you've got at the mouth of the Flint River, you've got the Mott's sugar processing facility. Am I right? They're growing the sugar beets and processing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, we know that they're growing sugar beets, and we know that they're growing Roundup Ready sugar beets, and we know that the active ingredient, the main ingredient in Roundup, is a chemical called glyphosate. Are you hip to this?
You know what? You're giving great information. You've got sugar production. You've got automotive production. I mean, this is what people have to remember. Flint is the birthplace of Oldsmobile, right? GM still has a plant in Flint. I mean, and so any kind of manufacturing requires water. And I know a lot of folks really, just think kind of bathing and getting the hair wash, toothbrush, that kind of thing. But any manufacturing requires water. The Flint River has been a dumping ground for years. Flint has not used their river water as a water source since the 50s.
You're getting a special, awesome ingredient. Hang tight for 1 second while I finish this thought. That Roundup Ready sugar beets are created so that they can have Roundup herbicide dumped on them. The active ingredient is glyphosate. Glyphosate being first patented as an industrial pipe cleaner. And it was very good at what it did. Turns out it also killed weeds. Who knew? You got that stuff being dumped in a significant amount right where you don't want it, right where you're pulling water in from the Flint River. So you've got an industrial pipe cleaner pumping through the pipes in Flint, Michigan, adding to an already toxic situation. That stuff is serious. The World Health Organization has just called it a probable carcinogen, and they only use the word probable because there's no human testing trials for glyphosate. You guys got trouble on top of trouble. So, yeah, you absolutely have a dumping ground. That Roundup is used in the bulk of genetically engineered foods, and that means a ton of glyphosate. Not only is it's also a broad-spectrum chelator, chelating all kinds of heavy metals and minerals. So, yeah, you guys got trouble on top of trouble over there. I hope somebody puts a spotlight on that processing facility and/or growing grounds for the sugar beets, because that's going to that is going to add to your issues. Like you need more, right? To the unholy water pumping through the pipes in Flint, Michigan. And so we've got high lead levels coming through in children. We've got infant mortality rates. We've got spontaneous miscarriage, which is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy that's directly attributable to the lead. And it's a serious, serious issue. You guys, are you being taken seriously by the governor now that you're asking for his resignation? Is that something that's happening, or are you still got the ignore button pressed?
Well, you know, I think we are being taken seriously. I think the situation is being taken seriously. This will be the first time a group has gone to the governor from Michigan to ask for his resignation in person. And so, you know, we'll see what the response is. But I have seen the governor escalate his response as, you know, national news media share, Michael Moore, local activists have upped the ante. We want to thank Mayor Karen Weaver for really getting the ball going. You know, we supported her campaign. She said she was going to run to fight for people. She declared the state of emergency. Then the county did. Rachel Maddow picked it up. CNN picked it up, and the rest is history. But this is a governor who I believe really does not have the courage or capacity to empathize with residents and citizens. I mean, as recently as yesterday, he was at the Detroit International Auto Show, and they asked him about Flint, and his response was, "I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to look at cars." You know, I mean, so the man is facing the biggest environmental racism, biggest health crisis, biggest potentially criminal incompetence situation in recent American history, and his response is, I'm here to see cars." So I think Governor Snyder is poised to try to ignore what he can, which is why we are saying we will not be ignored. If we have to take the fight to Lansing, we will.
No, absolutely. I saw some video where you were riling up the crowds to get them on the buses. How important is it that the residents take part in this action?
It's very important that the residents take part in this action. I mean, everybody looks for the leader. Everybody wants the Superman. Everybody wants the Wonder Woman. You know, if this were Gotham, I guess Batman would be involved. But this is Flint. This is Detroit. This is Benton Harbor. This is Michigan. The only heroes we have are ordinary citizens. And when ordinary citizens stand up, good things come our way. We fight for democracy because we believe in democracy. Part of what democracy says is that regular people should have a voice and a role in setting policy and in setting the laws that they have to live under. So it's very important for people not to be apathetic, people not to look for one leader, people not to wait for some messiah, but for people to look in the mirror and understand that they are experts about their own situations, and that the governor needs to hear from citizens in Michigan, and then folks who are not in Michigan from across the country or even the world, who believe in democracy, who believe in human rights, who believe government should serve people, whether they're rich or not, should also stand with us. And so it's very important for the people's voice to be heard.
Right. So now do you have other events planned? Like, what's your event horizon looking forward over the next few months, over the next year, 2016?
Well, we've got Thursday planned, and then we will have a planning meeting the following week. I know that there are a number of different groups collecting water. I know the Progressive National Baptist Convention, which actually is the convention Dr. King started, plans to collect water. I heard Pastor Jamal Bryan out of Baltimore is planning to come to Flint February 1st and collect water. So we're seeing a number of different groups doing water collection. In terms of our particular timeline, we're coordinating with elected officials in Lansing who are right-headed and righteous. We're continuing to be in contact with mayors across the state of Michigan, in Lansing, in Flint, in Benton Harbor, at Highland Park, dealing with a number of water issues, bad infrastructure, high water bills, bad water service delivery. And so we do have a 3 to 6 month timeline that we will be publishing and announcing that are filled with actions, teach-ins, and other organizational meetings to continue to push the envelope on Governor Rick Snyder and the Republican Party, because we also know that November 2016 is going to be a critical election year, at least for the state house, and it may be an opportunity for the Republicans to feel some pain because of what their governor has done as well.
Excellent. Well, whatever it takes, pull every card to get safe water for those people. I don't blame you. I hope it doesn't get to Cher's alternative. But I know that one of the things that's sort of like pending, and I look at it from a national perspective and a federal perspective, and I think, why hasn't the state of emergency, it has been called, but why don't we have troops in there? Why don't we have the government, the federal government, getting involved? What is the holdup?
Well, the National Guard is coming in. As of last night, the announcement was made. FEMA is supposed to come in a more robust way. I think the difficulty there is that Governor Rick Snyder was playing politics. While he called it a state of emergency, he didn't call it a state of disaster. He didn't declare it a disaster area. And so again, you have a guy without empathy, a guy who's playing politics when people's lives are being affected in major ways. And I think a man who needs to resign. You know, he has failed, and it's okay. Sometimes we fail at things, but when regular people fail, they get fired. When regular people fail, they can't stay on the job. When regular people fail, you know, they have to do more than apologize. I mean, I wish I could just fail on the job, and say I'm sorry. And so Governor Rick Snyder really has to be held accountable for failing Flint and the state of Michigan.
Do you think firing is enough? And what I mean by that isn't like torture or, you know, I mean like, you know, restitution. I mean, he's created a situation that's a financial disaster for the people of Flint, Michigan. There are poor people. There are people. You don't even have to be poor to not be able to afford your water. I heard the church's water bill was $3,000 last month. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, look. Water bills in Flint, Highland Park, and Detroit are off the charts, and then I mean, that's a related issue. Of course, in Flint, they're paying for lead water, they're paying for poison, right? So you know, there's a whole question about whether or not they should be given a refund by the water department, or maybe the state of Michigan should give them a refund. I think the appropriation question has to be answered by the state legislature. Now, the chair of appropriations is the same elected official that introduced the legislation for emergency managers, Al Pashoka. And so he needs to be held accountable. He's partly responsible for Flint because he introduced the law that made emergency management possible. And now he's over appropriations. The money question needs to be answered by the state legislature. The resignation question needs to be answered by the governor. And the criminal prosecution question needs to be answered either by the state legislature and the state attorney general or the federal government. I think it is important to call for Rick Snyder's resignation and also call for a criminal investigation at the same time. He needs to leave the job because he failed on the job, and then there needs to be a criminal investigation about the failure to make sure that the failure was not criminal. And so those things are consistent. And of course, we know that it's going to take more than one rally to make this stuff happen. But we just, this is dot number one. And we're hoping people across the country and the world will help us connect the dots.
Absolutely. What happens in Flint can happen anywhere.
That's
your
right.
Your pipes are not unusual special pipes. They're the same pipes in a lot of older cities. Your situation is not a unique situation. We are finding that municipal and private water companies are being bought up. There are like, what, 3 major controllers of all the private water in the world, hello, and they've bought up all over the United States. So this situation can happen to you whether you're on municipal water or private water. You could find yourself in this whether or not you live in a small city or a big city. We know that same issue had to be dealt with in D.C. So, you know, as water becomes a scarce commodity and a resource, you're going to find all kinds of situations like Flint popping up. And how is Flint going to be handled? Is Flint going to be ignored? Are the people of Flint going to be pushed under a rug, or are they going to stand up together and be heard? And that's the only way to get it done, is the uniting of the people. Don't fight amongst yourselves. Don't be like starving rats in a container, in a cage. Don't bite each other. Point the guns at the enemy, not literally, but point the arrows at the people that are causing the problems, at the policy that caused the problems, and look long term, because you've got a problem, and sometimes when you have a problem and you want to get it fixed, and you got a little bit of blood in the water, the sharks come out, because they know there's something to be gained. Whether there's a win or a lose, there's money getting thrown around, and the sharks are going to come feeding. So find yourself some good local folks that really want to affect change. Get them to office. Get them to write the policy. Protect yourselves. This is not a fast fix for sure. I know you know that. And don't save your bullets and your vinegar and your arrows for the enemies, not for each other. And teamwork, that's what I loved about listening to some of your YouTube speeches, was that you were really bringing the community together. And I love listening to that. I love hearing that. And I love that this issue is important to the communities of faith.
Right.
I love it. I myself am not a religious person, but I believe in God. And I will say this, I've watched a lot of uselessness be pushed by churches and organized religion. And I love that this is a practical thing, and that people can count on the churches in Flint and in Detroit, that St. Matthew's, Greater St. Matthew's, is a place that people can turn to for leadership in a practical way. And I love that you're getting involved. I think it's beautiful. I wish you guys the best of luck with your rally. I hope that Rachel doesn't forget about you anytime soon. At least this Rachel won't. So I met Rachel Maddow. And I hope that we do see some accountability from your elected officials and from the federal government when they step in. I'm shocked that it has taken this long. But it also kind of speaks to the fact that democracy in the United States is put on hold, and our elected officials, local, national, feel like they're not beholden to the people anymore.
That's right.
They work for the corporations. They work for the institution, the party. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent, your first responsibility is not to your party, it's to the people.
That's right.
It's not to the corporations, it's to the people. The people of this country. And first. And that is something they need to be reminded of, and I'm so glad you're dishing it out to them in Lansing. You're dishing it out to them for the rest of the country, and we are behind you, 100% behind you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Any last comments for Flint, for the nation?
Just look, follow the movement, Twitter, D. Alexander B. D. Alexander B. Facebook, David Alexander Bullock. Also, the organization that we have pulled together here, Change Agent Consortium. On Facebook, Change Agent Consortium. If you want to stay in touch, in tune with what's happening as it develops, follow us on social media. And, you know, I want to also give a shout out to all of the leaders in Flint, Bishop Jefferson, Arthur Woodson, State Rep Sheldon Neely, Eric Mays, Mayor Karen Weaver, Naira Sharif, Pastor Flynn, so many names that will not be called. I want to call a few of those names because there are people who have been fighting tirelessly without the attention, don't want the attention. They just want justice. We go to Lansing tomorrow. If you can meet us there, meet us at 11 o'clock at Central Methodist Episcopal Church, 215 North Capitol Ave. If you can't meet us there, send good vibes, send prayers, whatever positive thing you can send our way, send it to Lansing. We go to start the movement to bring Governor Rick Snyder to justice.
Pastor Bullock, thank you for joining us on the show. We appreciate you taking time to do that, letting the world know why this is such an important issue. And I want to say to our viewers, this is not the end of our series on Flint Water Crisis. We have a Friday show coming up. Hope you'll join us then. Keep watching. Thank you so much.